You have made it to the last segment of the Americas. In this segment, we're going to talk about the Inca and the Inca Empire. There are a lot of similarities between the Inca and the Aztecs and some important key differences. So, the Incan state also occurs in the later part of our time period. So, the last few hundred years prior to 1450. And their empire also dies out with Spanish conquest, which come in the 1530s. The Inca set up a huge tributary state. We're going to take a look at the size in the next slide. And they did this through conquest and diplomacy. They had a very organized army based on foot soldiers, very ritualized warfare, as we're going to learn about when we learn about the Spanish. And they also used a lot of diplomacy. They would have diplomats go to different kingdoms and talk about how joining the Incan Empire would be a very fortuitous thing to do. So the types of alliances that could be built. And the other thing that they did was they had a lot of intermarriage between Incan soldiers and local people. Oop. The Incan rulers were also semi-divine. They were the sun god on Earth. And Inca actually means it's divine. They were also set up as a tributary state, so different regions gave tribute to the capital. The capital is Cuzco. I don't know if you can see it over here, but there it is, right there. It's very close to Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu is not an administrative capital. One of the biggest forms of tribute was the mita, which was where different members of empire would give tribute in the form, it was like a tax in the that was made up of labor or artisan work or like building roads, farming, the land that was controlled by the Inca, building, in Machu Picchu. So it was very similar to what China did, but these are three different things that people could do. And the Mita was really the backbone of their one of the backbones of their labor system. So you weren't a slave, you would just work for part of the year. For the Inca. The Inca had a record-keeping system called Quipu, which is actually three-dimensional, and people used to think it was just representative of time and wealth, but as we're learning more about it, we think it actually represented more. Mummification played a big role in Incan religious ceremonies. Human sacrifice did not. And mummification, so the Andes are a very high region. It's very dry there. Similar to Egypt, mummification, it's, I guess, things are well preserved in that environment. So mummies could have both religious and political power. So you would bring out your ancestors. So for example, you would mummify, the dead in your family. And these ancestors would play a key role like at family meetings. So in a big meeting to make a big decision, you would bring out your mummified ancestor and have them like listen in and weigh in on what was going on. And rulers were also mummified, and they could play the same key advisory role. So they believed that basically the person's spirit inhabited the mummy still. Okay, so I told you we were going to learn more about how the Incan Empire was founded. You can see here, this map is really nice. It's from National Geographic. And this is the Incan Empire. I want to bring your attention here first It says, employing a shrewd combination of diplomacy, intermarriage, and military coercion, the Inca conquered a vast realm extending 2,500 miles all along the spine of South America. At their height, they ruled as many as 12 million people who spoke at least 20 languages. And then they end with the Spanish in 1532. So, very vast empire, comparable in size to the biggest empires we're seeing in Afro-Eurasia, like the Persian Empire. And their empire is made basically in four stages. They start out in Cusco, and then they move beyond Cusco and push towards the coast in the north, and then they go south and extend their reach all the way. This region here is Patagonia, which I would really like to go to someday in my life. It's supposed to be like an outdoor heaven, and also very treacherous. And then they move along the Amazon basin here. So, um, big, huge empire. How did they connect it? With roads, right? They built more than 40,000 kilometers, almost 25,000 miles of roads. And you have to remember that in the Incan Empire, as in the Aztec Empire, there were really no beasts of burden. There were llamas and stuff like that, but these weren't like cattle or oxen. Like all of this labor was human labor. You know, you didn't have these huge beasts of burden like you did in other places. Um, and that goes into who is traveling on these roads. The roads are not very super duper wide. You know, they're wide enough for you to carry someone and you know be basically, oops, was not a good circle apparently, in a group of four like that. But they're not super duper wide because you didn't have these huge chariots or these huge, because you didn't have huge animals. They also had suspension bridges, as you can see back here. That's really blurry. But then the other thing they were really innovative with, just like the Aztecs, was agriculture. They used a terracing system here, and then they also had waru waru, which were, as you can read here, a series of mounded earth, kind of like a chinampa, where the waters in the canals absorb the sun's heat by day and then radiate back at night. This keeps your crops from freezing with a frost, because in the Andes it gets really cold at night. Then they had platforms that were 3 to 30 feet wide, or 13 to 33 feet wide, 33 to 330 feet long, and 3 feet high. 3 is the magic number. And yes, the canals were similar size. And then the sediment in the canals would be piled on top of the, from the trenches to the mounds, and this was incredibly fertile soil. It was like great compost. One of the huge crops for the Inca is the potato. The humble potato comes from the Andes. And there were hundreds of different kinds of potatoes. One interesting thing about the Inca is that the ruler owns the land. So the Inca owns the land, so there's really no private property. He owns the roads, he owns the messengers, and so it's different in that way. And I'll let you read about that in the Andrea. The Incan road system was mainly made up of two large roads, the coastal highway and the more mountainous highway. These roads could be up to 16,000 feet high. That's higher. I don't know if you've been to Colorado and heard about the 14ers Club, but that's like really, really high. So these, you know, it's very tall. And then there were actually a series of connecting roads between the two. And over here you can see a road. And Machu Picchu is something that a lot of people learn about with the Incas. And Machu Picchu was a spiritual center, and it was also a lost city. It was rediscovered, I believe, in the 1800s, and we are going to watch a video about this in class. So Machu Picchu, spiritual center of the Incas, and that is all I have to tell you about the Americas. Please don't forget to do the listening check and have a wonderful day.